The Hart Bridge over the St. Johns River, and just across in downtown Jacksonville, it's TIAA Bank Field, and this is live training camp presented by Florida Blue, and we welcome you inside. For the first time in the 2020 season, J.P. Shadrick with pride of the Jaguars, left tackle Tony Baselli on the Game Day Live set inside TIAA Bank Field. We are 2 weeks away from opening day. Can you believe it?
Well, it's surreal because it's been a surreal offseason. I mean, nothing has been normal. I mean, if you think back, this is the first time, and we were talking about this before we came on the air, this is the first time I've been in this building since March.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I walk in, I'm like, this is crazy. This is a place that on a typical offseason, I'm here twice a week, a couple times a week, maybe every day at times, coming to practice, watching stuff, being around the team. I mean, I got friends on this coaching staff I haven't seen, forever. I mean, you and I have talked on the phone. I mean, I haven't seen vlogs. Unfortunately, I had to see Joe again today, our great producer. So everything is surreal to me right now as far as how this NFL season's going or going to go. But when you tell me in 2 weeks we're going to be playing real football, boy, days like this are really important. Because you only get so many of them. That's no right. Preseason. Limited practice, no offseason, new coach, second-year quarterback, all stuff we'll talk about today, but it's going to be interesting, JP.
Speaking of the quarterback, there he is, Gardner Menchu, the second on the field at TIAA Bank Field with the rest of the quarterbacks. Obviously a huge year for Menchu, his second NFL season. It's a brand-new offense for him, and he went through so many systems back in college that the process of learning an offense is not foreign to him, but it is still certainly, Tony, a challenge in this type of offseason to not be on the practice field, not be able to rep it much at all except in training camp, and then all of a sudden opening day, here's the new offense, Gardner.
Well, listen, it's one thing to bounce around offenses when you're in college because the speed of which you have to execute and make decisions is much slower. Like, you can sit and wait for guys to get open, and there's bigger windows, so it's easier. From a intellectual standpoint, I'm not worried. He's a smart dude. I mean, didn't he have one of the highest Wonderlic scores? And so he's smart. But my question is going to be for a young player, will the timing be there? Will he be able to drop back, and even though he recognizes, is he going to be maybe a half a second, a half a click slower recognizing? Well, now all of a sudden, the window's not there. And these things take time. I don't care how smart you are or how many times you've gone through it. There's only so much you can absorb and then repeat immediately instinctually. And so, often in games in the NFL, it's all about, it's not like, hey, let me process 1, 2, 3. It's like, I've seen this before, I'm going here, and you let it fly, and you let it rip. That's what the best ones can do. And that's what we hope Gardner Menchu ends up being and is able to, but it's a tall task. New coordinator, second-year player, weird offseason that we just talked about. Yeah. So a lot of challenges. But one thing we've learned about Gardner Menchu, he likes a challenge. He has a little bit of swag and the it factor in him that he really likes to compete and go after it, and there's no challenge too big. So I'm excited to see how he does.
One of those shots we saw a moment ago was Doug Marrone with the two coordinators, Jay Gruden on the offensive side, Todd Wash on the defensive side. And, Jay Gruden's coming in, former head coach for the Washington football team. He has been McAdoo as the quarterback's coach. You saw Ben standing by Gardner just a little bit earlier. That's a lot of quarterback and offensive knowledge around Gardner to help out the quarterback. McAdoo has a history of working with quarterbacks in his past, obviously at the quarterback school in Green Bay, and then Gruden here on the left on your screen, coming in as the former head coach in Washington. So that's a lot of knowledge to have around the quarterback.
I got a question for you before we get to that. What is the policy? As we see in the picture here, Doug has a mask on. Both coordinators do not have a mask on. And I've watched practice, and not just the Jaguars, other NFL practices too. Some coaches have masks on, some don't have masks on. Is that personal preference? Is it just? I want, and maybe have any idea of like what the actual protocol is? Yeah, me neither. It's just interesting. I've seen it everywhere. I've literally seen like at every training camp, like some coaches wear them and some don't. And I'm like, huh.
I think, and I'm guessing it's a personal preference because
Yeah.
everybody in the player and coach situation is tier 1 or 2, and they're all
they're all together getting. Yeah,
So-
I'm not saying there's anything. I mean, I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong. I'm just wondering if there's. It has to be personal preference. They're all getting tested every single day, and so, assuming they're all doing the right thing, almost no risk of transmission. But back to the quarterbacks as we look at Gardner Menchu and his other quarterbacks on the screen.
All the knowledge around Minshew and the quarterback room, that's got to only help this group.
Well, it's not going to hurt. That's for sure. I mean, you got head coaches, you got coordinators, you have but quarterback coaches with a lot of experience, and you look at the group here. It's a mixed bag. You have super young and a little bit of experience here in the room. So. I think Gardner, they're trying to set him up. They're trying to put him in the best possible situation he can. The interesting thing to me is all the talk around Lewton.
And, Jay Gruden.
I mean, that's what I was referring to. I mean,
brought it up.
He's a steal.
In his press conference the other day at how good he has been. He praised all the quarterbacks, but most notably Lewton. That's a guy that is deeper down the draft, 6th-round pick. And, we've seen in camp some balls come out of his hand that are fantastic, which is good news.
Yeah, I think if I was Doug Marrone, I would have told Jay Gruden, tell everyone that Lewton stinks. He's having the worst camp ever. Not sure he's going to make the roster. We got trouble because you want to keep him, and if you put him on practice squad, you don't want someone to come to grab him. So I would have been lying if he's playing good. But it is good news. It's from the standpoint of, I think we've said it. We all want Gardner Menchu to be the man. I'm not sure any of us are convinced he's the man. We hope he's the man. And with that, you got to make sure you go get as many quarterbacks as you possibly can, and until you find one that's your franchise guy.
We're looking at the wide receivers now. Keenan McCardell is throwing passes to those guys as they get warmed up. We all know about DJ Chark. We all know about the veteran guys who've been around here. Chris Conley making the grab there. There's a new face there, too. Laviska Shenault, who has flashed in camp early this year. Tyler Eifert is another new face, the tight end brought in free agency. So I think the new faces around here on offense will be key to what Jay Gruden wants to get done. The tight end position, Laviska Shenault, if they can move him around a bunch of different places, can help Gardner mix it up a little bit. And certainly the running backs out of the backfield, too. Chris Thompson, Leonard Fournette, those guys out of the backfield, that's a staple of what Jay Gruden, I think, wants to do.
Yeah, you talk about Jay Gruden and kind of the multiple possible threats this team has. Wide receivers, young, counting on a rookie. I mean, and we've seen him flash during camp. You got a guy in Eifert who's really been beat up, finally played a full year last year. And so you're counting on a guy that historically has not been able to do it for a full year. Talented, without a doubt. And then the running back group you talked about. And I think I've been intrigued by Chris Thompson in camp. Just watching him.
Yeah.
34, right?
Yep.
34.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see because he's really more of that scat third down back. And it'll be interesting to see how they share time. Because if last year Leonard did everything and ran the entire, pretty much every snap. And to get Rock Armstead in there, you had to tackle, drag.
Right, yeah.
Drag Leonard off the field. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they rotate reps. I think Chris Thompson's a guy. I like his skill set. It'll be interesting. He's a Florida State kid, and
it's he has more receiving yards in his career than he does rushing yards.
That's why I think in third down. That's my whole point. I think it'll be interesting to see how they use him. So, but all those, everything you said is it's interesting to me. A couple other things that are going to be interesting is how much of the offense can Jay Gruden really get in, and has he got in that he would like to based on this offseason and how training camp and no preseason, everything's gone. And then two. I think the most important part is how does this offensive line perform?
It all starts there, obviously.
Those
groups back. We'll see them in one-on-ones coming up a little bit later. But
yeah, and I love the group, but
yeah.
I keep on – and as you know, I can be biased and love these guys a little bit maybe more than I should sometimes because have an affinity for the offensive line, obviously. And I'm a big fan of those guys individually. But I go back to the whole time last year, that was not a good group. I mean, am I missing something, JP? Would that be accurate? I mean,
their performance was not up to par, let's say that, most of the time.
And not one change was made.
But throughout the entire offseason, even going back to right after the season, going into the draft, after the draft, multiple times Dave Caldwell and Doug Marrone supported this offensive line group, really as a whole. And they didn't spend a very high draft pick on offensive line, which a lot of folks really thought they might in this draft this year. They ended up with Barch, who comes in, and he's going to be a developmental type player at some point. He'll step in at a guard position, I think, down the line here. But, yeah, they're rolling with the guys they had last year. They're confident in what they've done. And even in training camp, we heard George Warhop discuss how much stronger they are, the technique they've been working in the offseason, and it shows what they've done on their own because the coaching staff has not been around the offensive line or anybody to kind of keep them on task. So the offensive line as a whole, at least so far, they've said, and it's looked like they've stepped up. Now, as you said on a show the other day, the proof is in the pudding. You got to see it when the lights come on for real.
Yeah, I guess I want to be a believer because I like these guys. And I've more than anybody, probably in this organization, in this town, especially on the media, said that I think it's a top 10 group, and I think they're this, and I think that, and blah, blah, blah. And I've gotten roasted on our show, especially on Monday by the callers, the people on social media, and you and Pete combined. And fairly, by the way, because they have not performed. So I'm taking a different position this year. I'm rooting hard and want them to be great. But it's the same group that we had last year. And so I'm going to say, like, okay, show me that as a group, because individually, again, I think they're good players. But as a group, like, we need you to step up.
Yeah.
And, like, we can't have the conversation like we're picking quarterbacks because their ability to get away from the pass rush. Like, no, as an offensive lineman, put whoever you want back there because we're going to protect. And I don't care who the running back is, we're going to open up holes. That's the type of season that this group needs to have for this offense to be successful in my estimation, in my opinion.
On this broadcast today, we will show you everything up until 11-on-11 work. We will show you the one-on-ones. We'll show you the warm-ups. We'll show you some individual drills. Very little special teams, some 7-on-7 with the one-on-one pass rush. But once the actual scrimmage begins, we will be off the air because, Tony, we're trying to win a Super Bowl around here. You can't put out all the plays on social media and on video. So that's the plan today. So glad you've joined us today on Jaguars.com and at Jaguars social media as we get warmed up for the scrimmage today inside TIAA Bank Field. A few notables are out today. Let's go down the list. Dakota Allen, linebacker. Running back Raquel Armstead is out. Taven Bryan, defensive tackle, has a knee bruise he's been battling. Center Brandon Linder has the day off. Daniel Thomas, the safety, is out. Dede Westbrook is battling through a shoulder issue week to week, says Doug Marrone, and Quincy Williams had core muscle surgery recently, and he is out for today. So those are the guys down. A bunch of guys were out yesterday for a maintenance day, and that's the everybody else, as far as we know, is up and available for the scrimmage.
Well, you know how I feel about the maintenance days.
Yes, I do.
Especially when you're giving maintenance days to second-year players. Not sure what that means, but, hey, I'm not the head coach. Doug Marrone is, and it's his ultimate call, and he's doing what he thinks is best for this football team.
Here's a couple of assistant coaches here, McAdoo and George Warhol.
Why is I wonder why this is really your only scrimmage.
That's right.
Why is Linder not out here? Why not give him a day off? Give him 3 days off this week, but like, why not get your guys you're going to go to battle with the reps today? Because this is really your only. Because you're tackling, I assume. I mean,
well, yeah, they're not going to the ground.
Oh,
today.
they're not. So this is just another 11-on-11.
Tag out.
So it's basically another practice.
Right.
Just doing it
with
in the stadium.
More 11-on-11.
Right. It's just more situational football, but we're not tackling or.
As far as we know, we're not tackling to the ground, unless there's a goal line situation. Which let's look through the script today, and I do not see a goal line situation. So
it's basically just like any other practice. Just more team.
More 11 on 11, yes.
Oh, I thought we were doing a real scrimmage.
Well,
Okay.
they are, but it's not like you're tackling to the ground.
A real scrimmage, you actually tackle.
Keelan Cole, you're looking at on the field at TIAA Bank Field. The center quarterback exchanges. Tyler Shatley is working with Menchu there, so you expect him to get a lot of the first team reps today.
But you know what I'm saying? I mean, like a real scrimmage, like you have to tackle. And this is going to be interesting, and it's not just the Jaguars. I think everyone's doing it differently. Some teams are tackling, and some teams aren't. Some teams are doing full scrimmages. Some teams aren't. Whatever. If it was me, I would do one Saturday full scrimmage like a football game, because you're going to have to play one on September 13th, and you're going to have nothing before then. And everyone says, well, college has no preseason games, and they do it. You're exactly right. You know what you do in college? You tackle to the ground a few times in scrimmages. Now, I just went to one at Florida State.
Right. Now, I will say there have been certain periods in practice where they have gone to the ground.
One.
I'm just saying.
I've seen one period of about 10 plays that they tackled.
All I know is in that one that you mentioned that Miles Jack tackled Leonard Fournette to the ground.
Okay, but my point is, again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is a philosophy kind of debate. And Doug's philosophy is we're going to have maintenance days, we're not going to hit, and we're going to be fresh and ready to go opening day. Great. I would just say I think my philosophy, and I'm not a head coach, I'm never going to be a head coach in the NFL, but I think if I was, I would say, you know what? We have a limited number of practices. We're going to go hard those practices, and we're one of those practices. We're going to have a game-like situation, so we're ready for opening day. Is there a risk of injury? Absolutely. But no more risk than, opening day, there's risk too. And so I just think those things, at some point you have to simulate what you're going to do in the game. And because I was talking to one coach around the NFL, and here's Leonard Fournette. Yep. We see him on the screen walking around, McAdoo just slapping him on the rear end with a piece of paper. I was talking to one coach, and he's like, tackling is going to be just awful in the first couple weeks because they're not because no one's doing it.
And it's like that around the league, though. So the question is, the first week or two of the season, is it sloppy around the league in terms of tackling?
That's my point.
Is it a high-scoring game the first couple weeks of the season because of that?
Which is why, if I was a coach, especially with a young team, right, I would go, hey, very few people are practicing this way. Very few people are going to be ready for the physicality and the tackling. So I'm going to have my young group. We are going to do all this stuff and get whatever advantage we can early. Just a thought.
Here's C.J. Henderson, the first-round draft pick from the University of Florida, cornerback who, by most accounts, has had a very, very good camp. He had a few days out with an illness, but he's back now. What have you seen of Henderson so far on tape, Tony?
I mean, he's a talented dude. I mean, he's a long corner who can run with you, move his hips well. He has great feet. It looks like he's a competitor. I'm really excited to see what you get out of him. I mean, I think he's a day one starter. Is he going to be a top end corner that he carries the best, other best receiver and goes wherever he is? Probably not right away. Does he have the potential to be that? From what I've seen, yes. And so I'm excited to watch him this year. We see them stretching now, lining up for a good old stretch, get loose. But back to C.J. Henderson.
Yep.
I'm excited. I think, I remember back on draft night, it was the most exciting pick for the franchise, I think. And some of the fans are like, because for whatever reason, and I didn't follow the Gators as closely as there were some questions about him. But then you go back and watch the tape, and especially his sophomore year before he came out. I mean, he's dynamic.
Right.
And I thought he looked good on tape last year. So everyone wanted the big guys, but I think they did a good job getting C.J. Henderson. I think he's my long story short, I think he's a really good player and have a good year.
We'll see a little more from Henderson coming up. You're watching live stretch before training camp presented by Florida Blue. J.P. Shadrick, Tony Baselli on the banks of the St. Johns River in downtown Jacksonville. Cloud cover today, rain in the forecast later, but they're expected to get this one in today. And as we said earlier, we will show you everything up until 11 on 11 work begins. So the warm-ups, the stretch now, the individual periods, a little bit of special teams, some 7-on-7 and 1-on-1. Leonard Fournette, big year for him, contract season. The Jaguars did not take the fifth-year option for the former first-round pick. Here is another first-round pick, and Caleb Chason, who was drafted this year out of LSU, the 20th overall selection. A guy who, early in Camp Tony, has battled a little bit of a hamstring issue, but even though he may not be 100%, he's fighting to get back on the field, and he mentioned that the other day in his press availability. You know, I want to be out there. There's some things you're rarely going to be 100% playing football, he said, so go out there and practice through it, and, you know, it's nothing at least too major, he said, right now, which is good news. We're excited to see what Chason has to bring.
So, watching him on tape, he's a great athlete. I don't think he's a natural pass rusher yet. It reminds me a little bit like watching Josh Allen last year. It's like, he's a great athlete, but like as far as pass rush moves,
right.
and a little bit like Chason's a little bit like that for me as well, right now. And so I'm looking for they need to find ways just to get him in space and let him just run around and make plays, because that's what he's going to be great at this year. And then I think you'll see the pass rush moves, much like Josh Allen, increase throughout the year and into next year.
We'll see Chason coming up in one-on-ones. You saw Joe Schobert wearing number 47. This is Miles Jack, and he moves to the weak side position at linebacker this year. Big change, obviously, for that defense, for head coach Doug Marrone and Todd Wash, the defensive coordinator. You get a new middle linebacker in Schobert in free agency. You're moving Miles Jack to yet another position in his career.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Miles Jack, you think about his journey, you know, starting the strong side, barely playing, and everyone screaming and yelling, why is he not playing more snaps, because with Paul Posluszny and Telvin Smith. And then he kind of works his way into third down, and then last year, think about this, he got the big deal before he was ever a starter.
That's right.
He got paid, if I'm not mistaken, top 5 starter money before he was ever a starter. He was the nickel starter for 1 year. Him and Telvin, and Puz would come off the field. And so they pay him this money, and the expectation last year, JP, was he's our Mike linebacker, he's going to be a Pro Bowler, and he's going to lead this defense. And he wasn't very good. I mean, if you just go right back down, he didn't have a good year. It wasn't awful, but paying top 5, he wasn't a top 5 middle linebacker. And I think, and no one really wanted to say much about that, I think, in the organization. But the loudest statement that was made is, we're going to go write a big check for another Mike linebacker and move you to Will, where we think your probably natural position is.
Right.
I mean, and so it's going to be interesting. I'm like a couple things. Think how much money we have at inside linebacker now between Schobert and Miles Jack.
That's a lot.
A lot of money.
A whole lot.
So that group's got to play, and they got to play well. And so it's going to be it's a big year for Miles Jack, and I'm hoping, and he looks good in camp and everything else, and he's such an athletic dude, and he will come and rock you, hit you in the mouth, all good things you want. We just got to see it once we get into the real deal, the game September 13th.
Stretch is complete. The individual period is beginning. Here's the offensive line with George Warhop on the left of your screen. Shatley again will most likely get the first team reps today with Brandon Linder out. Interested to see this group, obviously, the defensive line. They've been under the spotlight here in training camp. The interior, as we've talked about on programs before, Tony, is a little bit of a question mark still because of all the changes. A couple of opt-outs early in the year, a retirement of Rodney Gunter. Avery Jones has been around here for a long time. Does Devonta Hamilton get us a role early, at least in a starting spot on this defensive line? It's something to watch, certainly. I think they're confident, obviously, in the outside guys, but the interior of that defensive line is where this defense is going to be made
Well,
or broken, I think.
And maybe one of the biggest stories is 91 going to be out there.
That's right.
What are they going to do with Ngakoue? Is he going to sign the tender? Are they going to trade him for a piece to find a big body inside for draft picks or something? We're 2 weeks away. I mean, the clock is ticking for Jan if he wants to get paid almost $18 million. And so my guess is, like, about the Monday of the first week of the season, he's going to sign the deal and come in. And then we'll see what happens from there. I don't see him holding out and walking away from all that money. It just doesn't make any sense. But the big question back to the group that's on the field is the interior group. Can they stop the run? They brought in Timmy Jernigan, who was a great pro in his heyday. Former first-round pick out of Florida State, outstanding player. But there's always a reason you're on the street. And I'm not sure what the reason was. We've seen him flash at times during camp, but they're going to need to get a lot of reps out of him. And especially, now, I mean, we're thinking that Taven will be ready for opening day, but right now he's out, and I think he was having a good camp. And you're going to need him and Jernigan to be kind of that rotation around at the 3 technique, and maybe even work Timmy Jernigan a little bit down at the nose with Avery. But I think you have to have big years out of those two. And then obviously Hamilton working in that nose with Avery. So it's a group that, again, was not very good last year. You lost some pieces that you thought were your best pieces in Calais Campbell. And Jan's not here. And then the pieces you tried to add back, they leave for whatever reason or can't play. So I'm very interested to see how this group performs because we talked about it Thursday, JP. It's as old as, as long as football's been played, it's been the same. If you can't win the trenches, if you can't win with the big people, if you can't stop the run and you can't run the ball, you're just not going to win very many football games because you got to block people and you got to stop the run. And this team struggled doing that last year. And so we're hoping, I think that's the key that we're going to need to see.
We're looking inside TIAA Bank Field, live training camp presented by Florida Blue.
And just
look at some warm-ups between the O-line and D-line.
What they're doing right now, JP, just for everyone watching, is they're actually going through a pregame warm-up like it was a game. So this is the exact cadence they would have before a game and before the game September 13th when they kick it off. You see the offensive and defensive line working together, just kind of fitting pads. You have pat and go that just finished up. Pat and go is where the quarterbacks throw to everyone else, offense and defense, just to get warmed up. Then they'll move into a brief 7-on-7 period. When they do the 7-on-7 period, the offensive line will go and defensive line will go from run blocking. Now they go to right now they're still doing the run blocking fits. They'll go to pass blocking as soon as we go to 7-on-7. So it's all coordinated. It's all worked together. We'll see here shortly, probably right now, that they're going to go to the one-on-one pass rush. This is not live one-on-one pass rush. This is just like, hey, we're getting ready for a game. Let's just get the blood going a little bit. Let's work our technique. Neither side is trying to win or beat the other guy. Just trying to get a good your mindset, good mental rep, and good physical rep from a standpoint of footwork, hand placement, that kind of stuff. So that's what they're doing right now.
Yeah, coming up some, as you said, the one-on-one, 7-on-7 stuff on the other side. There'll be a few plays of actual team in the warm-up period.
Yep.
And then a field goal, a punt, and then they'll take the break. Go into special teams period after that, since this is a practice today.
Yep.
Then a full 7-on-7 on one side of the field with one-on-one pass protection on the other side.
That's right. And then we'll be kicked out.
We will show some.
Then we'll be kicked out.
Then we'll be kicked out after that.
Because they're going to go 11-11. Yeah. Thanks for coming, but don't come back.
We will show you as much as we can today. We're glad you've chosen to join us today on Jaguars.com. That's Shaquille Quarterman. He's a draft pick at the University of Miami, Jacksonville area native.
Orange Park kid.
High School.
Orange Park kid, right?
Yes, Oak Leaf.
That's Orange Park area. Yep.
You're looking at Jake Lewton. late round draft pick this year. O'Shaughnessy's coming back from a knee issue last year, a torn ACL, tied in.
You know, I just don't know some of these guys as much as you usually do. Like,
We haven't had a whole offseason to look at them, you know.
Yeah, I'm just looking at I'm like, you know, typically you get into regular season, I don't even need a flip card, like a roster to go call the game, because you just know all the names and numbers and just know the guys. I'll be using the flip card early because it's like, okay, remind me who, you know, Shaquille, 50, like he's brand new. Like I looked at it for a second. I'm like, okay, that's the Jacksonville kid. He's a rookie. Like you have to process this because we're not around these guys very much.
A couple rookies here. Josiah Scott, a draft pick. Colin Johnson, the wide receiver out of the University of Texas, 6'6".
I think Colin Johnson is going to make this team. He brings a different type of guy to that position group. His length, he runs well for his size. I think he's going to make the roster. It'll be interesting of how they, you know, because they keep 6 receivers. Like, one of those guys has to help you out on special teams.
That's the trick, right? You
can't
just
like,
sit everybody down and wait on offense.
Yeah, like which one of those guys is going to help them? Like, is Colin Johnson a guy that Jody Camillus, the special teams coordinator, wants to help him out? I mean, I don't know.
So now we're into.
This is just a warm up.
Yes,
11 on 11. Yep, just warming up. You see Doug Marrone there. You know, we did for a second. I think Doug needs to get a bigger mask too. It's a little bit. Doug needs to get a bigger mask. It's a little bit.
He still has the whistle underneath.
He's got the whistle. He's trying to make it work.
Move and shake.
It's not a. Hey, listen. It's tough to be a head coach in normal circumstances. It's really hard to be head coach in a pandemic. You got a lot to worry about. You got masks, you got whistles, you got coordination, you got social distancing, you got a lot to do.
Devine Ozigbo, former Nebraska Cornhusker.
You know what I mean? You see Dobbs here. We traded for him last year, it was a 5th rounder to the Steelers. I don't know how he makes the roster, though, JP. I mean, I don't think they're going to – I mean, Glennon's your backup. Obviously, Menchu's your starter. You know, they keep 3 either on the active roster or 1 as a practice squad guy, either way.
Yeah, Jay Gruden said he would want 3 active.
Right.
Or not active, but 3 on the roster.
Right, which I don't really understand. That doesn't make sense to me because if he's on practice squad, what does it matter? You know, you can pull him up immediately.
Well, his point was just in case something happens early with the pandemic, COVID.
But I get it, but if he's on practice squad, you can still pull him up to the active roster.
His concern might be you may not be able to get him to practice squad with a waiver wire.
I
think that's part of the issue.
If that's what he's saying, then yes.
That's probably what I –
yeah, okay, that's fair.
That's what he meant.
Okay, that's fair. So, like, I think this is a long way of saying I think Dobbs is the odd man out. I mean, not keep 4. I mean, so Lewton, Glennon's your backup, Menchu's your starter. I'm not sure there's a place for Dobbs on this team. What are your thoughts?
I think that makes sense, you know, considering the camp that we've seen so far. I mean, Dobbs was traded over here last year after the injury to Foles and never saw the field last year. And considering the changes that they've made since then in this offseason, sure. I mean, Glennon's has some experience in this league. I think you need that around a young quarterback.
Well, he started.
Right.
Glennon's been a starter.
That's right. So I think you need that type of experience around him. And then Lewton's your draft pick. So,
oh, here we are. We're back. Look at that.
Welcome back on the Game Day Live set. JP Shadrick, Tony Vaselli, glad you're along with us today. We're showing you as much as we can up until 11 on 11 work today. We're about halfway through the warm-up period. A special teams period is coming up. Then we'll have 7 on 7 on one side and 1-on-1 pass rush on the other. And we'll show you that O-line, D-line mainly. A couple of 7 on 7 snaps at least are scheduled to be shown as well.
I need to put some sunglasses on. Like I got the heat lamp coming down.
This is television, Tony. This is not a radio show anymore. So you might put the glasses on. the future is bright for Tony
Is
Boselli.
that better?
It is,
Yeah.
much better. So we've got, obviously, we touched on the big picture here, but this is unlike any offseason we have seen or may ever see again in the National Football League with everything that has happened with COVID-19. Now the social justice initiatives are starting to kick up again. We saw that the other day with the Jaguars having a team vote and voting to go out to practice. So everything around the NFL is a different playing field, I think, than it was before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's hope we never see an offseason like this again. Let's hope that there's not another pandemic, and let's hope that we can do better as a country as far as coming together and work on, how we treat each other, and how we speak about each other, and how each of us feels about opportunities in this country is equal. So let's hope all that gets better, so we don't have to do this again. Because this isn't fun for me. I like talking about football. I like being around football. I like being around the guys. And right now, the pandemic doesn't allow us to do that. And right now, because of the social issues and the inequality that people are experiencing and expressing and feeling, that dominates the conversation, as it probably should, by the way, in sports. And so I'd like both of those to get fixed. And I'm not smart enough to fix either of them. I'm certainly not a scientist that's going to figure out and get a cure. And I just hope some of these vaccines or whatever happens, they get it right. And I do hope that, our leaders, lawmakers, and individuals listen and figure out how we can do better as a country. And going back to football, watching one-on-one Zigbo and Shaquille Hordeman, the rookie, working in some special teams drills. These are live, so this is full speed competing against one another.
And that's where a guy, this area right here, special teams, is where a mid to late round draft pick will really make his case for the roster, Tony. This is where you have to shine for that man right there, Joe DeCamillis, the special teams coordinator.
I like Joe D's going old school, letting his hair grow out. He's got he might put a man bun here. It's so long. He worked the ponytail. But Joe D, and we've said this, I think has one of the harder jobs from the standpoint of, he has to evaluate who his core special teams guys are. Probably easier, but then he's got to figure out how's he going to fill it out around. And usually those guys they're not your starters, they're down the roster guys. And so you're trying to figure out who is the backup at this position that I can use as a gunner for punt team, or who's going to be the number 4 tight end that's going to be a core guy on every special team that I need. And so you start trying to put all this together. We talked about receivers. Okay, hey, we're going to keep 6 receivers. Well, none of those, I got to find one of them that can help me on teams. And I got to figure that out without preseason and watching it live and doing it all together. It's only in practice. So I think it is a tough job. Maybe the toughest job is for Joe DeCamillis as special teams coordinator to kind of figure that out. Equally as tough as, we saw Dave Caldwell there a second ago. He has to put it all together with Doug. Obviously that's a very difficult job when you have limited information to make that decision with.
Here's a look at some of the defensive linemen making their way down for the one-on-one coming up after special teams.
And we're seeing the offensive line here. This is individual drills. They're working on their double team blocks just against each other. This is, half speed. Just getting your hands, getting your footwork right, getting timing right.
That's Andrew Norwell right there. And he's taken a lot of criticism from fans over the last year.
You and Pete have been mean. I've been a supporter. Let's be clear.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, because I think he's is he the best left guard in football? No. Was he paid to be the best left guard in football? Yeah, okay, whatever. But we know you overpaid free agency. But is he in the upper 20% of left guard? I think so. I think he's let's say if you put all the guards in quadrants, so 25% quadrants, he's in the upper quadrant of left guards. And that's why they weren't going to cut him, because okay, if I cut him, how do I improve at that position? and I don't think they would have been able to in free agency or on their current roster. So I think he's one of the better players on the offensive line.
A.J. Cann on the other side, they re-signed him, former draft pick here, of course. What do you think of Cann there? And then the development of Ben Barch, I think, will be interesting to watch as the time moves along here for this organization.
Yeah, I mean, so A.J.'s one of those guys I just can't figure out from the standpoint of consistency, because sometimes I'm like, he's playing really good football, and then there's times it's like, holy cow. He leans. He's gets his head down. His weight way over his toes, and he's getting thrown around a little bit. So, I think it's a position. I think that the rookie out of St. John's College up in Minnesota.
Ben Barch.
Ben Barch is the guy that I think ultimately they'd like to be their right guard, but he's gonna have to take it from AJ, and he has not done that during training camp by any means. I mean, right now, AJ is the best right guard of this roster. So, and I just think the trick for AJ is very simply being more consistent, because he has the talent. Just got to be more consistent. Another thing you'll notice if you're looking at the offensive linemen right now, some of them have these funky kind of helmet coverings on, some don't. And that is, I believe the NFL is doing some sort of test as far as impact in close with the interior linemen.
Yeah, not full speed impact, but close quarters impact. It's a case study between the league and the Players Association. Actually has worked on this off the field, and now it's a study on practice fields, I believe, around the league, to determine a couple of different ideas of these things to see which one is the better quality.
And I guess it's an opt-in thing. You can do it if you want to. You don't have to.
So. Well, yeah, we saw Juwan Taylor did not have.
I would not do it. Just raising my hand, I'd say I'm out. I don't need anything extra on my head. But
right, so you see Norwell does not have one, Taylor, but a few guys do. Most of the days in a regular camp day, most everybody has had one.
Yeah, I would not.
Here's head coach Doug Marrone. They are switching around now, and up next on the docket is 7-on-7
and one-on-one, I believe.
One-on-one pass protection.
Be good.
So we will take a look at a couple of 7-on-7 snaps, we're told, and then we will move on to one-on-one pass protection. A lot of folks are curious what this offense is going to look like this year, so we'll start with
including us, by the way. You said a lot of folks are curious. I said, including us.
I think everybody is. So it's Gardner Menchu running a 7-on-7.
We might be in the front of the line of curious.
You'll find the tight end there on the first snap of 7-on-7. Tyler Eifert. Josh Oliver goes down with injury in camp. That's far from ideal. So Eifert had a lot of pressure on him already as a big free agent tight end, and I think even more so now.
Well, I mean, my question is, like, who is going to be their blocking tight end? Like, if they want to run the ball.
It's a great question.
Because, I mean, and remind me what happened to Charles Jones, because for a while, weren't we saying he was going to be the blocking guy?
Right, he's out. He's done. He's on injured reserve.
Yeah, like, what happened to him? I can't remember the injury.
He's done.
Yeah. And so, like, okay, take that off the list. And then, like, the rookie, was it Tyler Davis?
Tyler Davis.
People really like him, okay, but he's a rookie. Like, I guess my point is,
they got a fullback on the roster as well.
But who's going to line up at Y, which is your inline tight end, and block the 6 technique on the edge, which is the defensive end? Like, who's going to be that physical blocker? I mean,
there was a Glennon rep there out to the left side. C.J. Henderson made a nice play.
And by the way, it doesn't have to be like a dominating guy. Like, if you think about the Chiefs. The Chiefs have Kelsey. Is he a dominating blocker? No, but he's a good position blocker, and he gets in the way, and he's
willing and gets in there and does.
And he'll get a lot of ties. Like George Kittle. Like, what people don't realize about George Kittle is like a dominating blocker. And so we just got to figure out who's that going to be.
We're over now to the one-on-one.
Oh, here we go.
Pass pro, and we just saw Devon Hamilton This is the
That was Morrow.
right tackle. It's Morrow.
No, the Morrow was the defensive end.
And Garrett Begin was playing right tackle. Here's Will Richardson on the left tackle spot.
Against Gostis. Yeah. Bad hands outside.
Now, this is not full speed.
It's supposed to be.
Right? Should it be?
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
Okay.
But to your point, that did not look full speed.
It did not look full speed to me.
But it's supposed to be.
Timmy Jernigan brought
We're
on
against Ben Barch.
just a little bit ago in camp. Former Florida State player.
Here we go. Yeah, I think we're missing the reps.
Yeah, it's
here.
on the left tackle spot. It's Will Richardson again against Gotsis.
I'm not sure who our camera guy is. We might want to.
Jernigan will take this one now from the interior.
That's a pretty good job by the rookie there. You know, that's one thing you see, and he has good balance. He's a big, physical, strong guy. And so that was a pretty good job there.
Hands at left guard.
He'll get another rep right here. If we get another look, Ben Barch is going to go right now again with Jernigan. Oh, maybe not. They're going center first. McDermott working against Davis. I think we'll go back to Ben Barch now. Yeah, we'll see Ben Barch right here, the rookie from St.
right
John's.
guard.
You got beat inside, and good old hand clap means you get beat. Whenever you see an offensive lineman give the hand clap, that means you're beat. And you got beat inside, bad set, overset.
Left guard.
Yep. Okay. Now we're going to go back to Lewton.
Yeah, back to 7-on-7.
7-on-7. This is according to Jay Gruden. Luton's had a great camp. He spins it real well, and I've seen, you watch him on tape, and it comes out, and he can let it go. And there's Colin Johnson, rookie out of Texas, tall, lean guy. We talked about him earlier.
The completion, though, was to James Robinson, a rookie running back out of Illinois State.
We're going to see Menchu. I'm going to turn around and watch so we can see the whole field.
So Gardner going to get a rep here with Chris Thompson at running back. DJ Chark split out to the far right.
You got Eifert in there. And Reed, I think. Or Davis, Tyler Davis.
Looking deep down the left side for Keelan Cole. And it's swatted away near the goal line.
Who's that on defense? So 30, is it 38, 9?
Well, 38 or 39?
I can't tell. Sorry.
38 is Amari Henderson.
Good defense there.
So Leonard Fournette lining up with Gardner Menchu now.
Schobert's out there. Miles Jack is the linebacker as well. So you get your first group at linebacker. Well, safe, almost a check down. Hitch
Conley.
route by Conley. Off to the right side. I don't think that was the first option for Gardner as he kind of scanned the middle of the field first. I believe it was Eifert he had running inside. The one-on-ones have wrapped up.
Yeah, the defensive line and offensive line are done. So this 7-on-7 period will be the last bit we are able to show you today on live training camp presented by Florida Blue.
Yeah, then we're going to go to 11-on-11. So looks like all done. That's it for. Oh, we're turning around. Okay, thank you, JP. All done.
You're welcome. This is television.
Well,
welcome back. Our look at the warm-ups and the one-on-one period, 7-on-7 leading into 11-on-11. And as we mentioned before, Tony, this is really the last real scrimmage opportunity, one of the only ones you'll have in training camp going into opening day 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, but it's not a real scrimmage because we're not tackling. It's it can be a heavy 11-on-11 situational. You can hear they're probably gonna have some crowd noise type of stuff and pipe-in music or loud, so you kind of simulate. And we saw that at the beginning with warm-ups, how they did it to simulate what they're going to experience on September 13th, but not going to be tackling to the ground. But that's okay. Philosophically, I think Doug's saying, hey, we're taking maintenance days. We're going to give guys off. Brandon Linder won't be out there today. We're going to make sure we're 100% healthy, or as healthy as we possibly can be. for opening day.
Tony, great stuff. Appreciate your time this morning. Good
Thank
to see
you. And it's great to be on TV. What I've noticed, JP, is usually they say TV adds 15 pounds. I'm looking good. This black is very slimming because right now I'm not at my ideal weight. I'm very fat. I was worried about being on the camera, but as I look, I got to tell you, I look good.
No comment from this side of the desk. For Tony Baselli and our entire crew, I'm JP Shadrick. Thank you for watching live training camp presented by Florida Blue on Jaguars.com.